So I have with me this afternoon Dr. Jerry Wilmink, who is the founder and CEO of WiseWear. I am wearing some of his WiseWear today, which is a wearable jewelry, health focused. And I have Dr. Katz, who is the founding director of Yale University's Prevention Research Center, a preventative medicine specialist. So, Jerry, why don't you start by telling us what the inspiration for you was to start a company focusing on wearables and preventative health measures?
You bet. Well, the truth is I'm not really supposed to be here. I was running a terahertz sensing lab for the Department of Defense, looking at skin dehydration, and in 2010 my world kind of flipped upside down. My grandfather, Dominic, who suffered from Lewy body dementia, which is kind of a cross between Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, was struggling with his balance and was having some imbalance late at night getting a glass of water, and he fell down, broke his hip, and my grandmother, Josephine, was upstairs, didn't hear him, laid there for an hour. We finally got help to the house, and we thought he was going to recover. He was healthy, big, hearty Sicilian guy, 78 years old. But unfortunately, he passed away the day after Christmas. And it motivated us to begin developing really advanced wearables. And now that this work was funded by the National Science Foundation, we developed a hearing aid that could pick up when a senior's dehydrated, when their gait's changing, when their balance is off, and pick up these precursors and be truly preventative and tell them sit down before they fall. And that's what I got the bug, and that's when I resigned from the research position and started WiseWear in my garage in 2013.
And David, how do you see this kind of technology changing the relationship with our medical providers? Because this is one of the links that's starting to happen.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a very compelling story, Jerry, and I think a classic instance of necessity and that personal skin in the game is the mother of really important invention. As a physician, this is a really important advance. We can't be there all the time, first of all. So a lot of the things we worry about with patients who have chronic maladies require longitudinal care, constant coaching. You're sort of wishing that whatever it is you said at the last visit would just stick, somehow float in the ether and be there in the moment of need, but we really can't be. But wearable technology can always be there. So essentially it becomes an extension, almost an extension of the clinical team's physical presence, which is very valuable, so you're protected all the time. Whatever protection we're trying to offer, the tech can make it available in a moment of acute need. But in addition, there's the opportunity to share information. We were just seeing that with the prior panel as well. But wearable technology can both alert the individual who's at risk of some acute calamity, but relay information to the medical team as well, so we're better informed. So you can be both proactive and reactive. The same elegant device that you're wearing on your wrist is empowering an entire team of people and rallying them around, frankly, better health and a greater level of protection.
So we talked a little bit earlier about that information that's being aggregated through a device like this one, and where that goes and how it works at the other end. And just if you can share briefly how is that changing at the other end in terms of where this information is going and how it can be used?
So Jerry will have better insights about the technology interlinks and such. But from a practicing physician's perspective, and we don't necessarily love this, by the way, but the age of the EMR has arrived. So my clinical colleagues are kind of railing against this all the time. And actually, we're still sort of looking for solutions, because until that technology advances, until the electronic medical record is really easy to use and speech recognition is the prevailing standard, docs often feel like they can't look their patient in the eye, they're too busy typing. So that part needs to be fixed. But there is tremendous potential in it, and one of the key advantages is that other technology can seamlessly integrate with it. And so the information flows directly into electronic medical record. There is no middleman, if you will, right? So, you know, instead of this will be sent to a computer and somebody will have to check their email and there are the data. And the good news is the data are accurate, but the bad news is you have to take those data and put them into a chart. Well, that computer is the chart now. And so that entire step has been removed. So you can immediately populate from the device an electronic medical record that is continuously current, that's much richer in information. And you know, this extends in all sorts of directions. You know, you could look at patterns, for example, if you're worried about falls, the frequency of those events, the times of day. Extremely difficult to ask a patient at a 6-week visit or a 3-month visit to remember what times of day did you feel dizzy, for example. But if you're wearing tech all the time that's relaying that information in real time, you have a vivid record of exactly that pattern. And now you're not just proactive for the individual events and reactive about the patient's general health, but able to respond to a pattern and say, I see what's going on here. This is related to meals or sleep-wake cycles or whatever else it may be, and then actually back up a step and provide a truly preventive strategy so that the frequency of those events goes away. And that's courtesy of interacting with the technology. But again, all of the data, the future of this is wearable tech integrates seamlessly with electronic medical records, which have taken over the practice of medicine already anyway.
Amazing.
And to add on that too, the evolution of technology, and in particular wearables in this case, I've described this to several of my colleagues. We go through chapters, you know, where initially you have the technology. I make the analogy to transportation. So you have chapter 1, the horse. Then you have a horse and buggy. Then you have fusion, the automobile. And we're kind of seeing this happen in different areas in technology where it's evolving, where the horse is the initial proof of concept of a step counter. Then you go through a phase where we need to make the horse look a little bit more regal, a little bit more beautiful. And we wrap up the technology to make it, you know, more acceptable and embraced by the consumer. And then you get a phase of fusion. And we're in that phase of fusion now, where we're not, as technologists, we're not calling designers saying, hey, help us make this pretty. We're saying, let's design this together. That way we make something that has true impact, that people, it's wearable technology that people would actually use.
It's an excellent analogy, and brilliant, really. But I've also told Jerry, as an ardent equestrian, that an analogy that basically sees progress as getting the horse out of the equation. I'm not so sure I love that.
Not the biggest fan.
It's a good concept.
Okay, so we're talking here about sleeker, faster. So let's start talking about, you started looking at an ear device, and you've evolved in the direction of sort of responding to the idea that people need to wear it all the time, therefore it needs to be something they want to wear all the time, and the whole issue of design. Can you tell us the story of how, I guess one of the big hurdles in the process created a new technology that's allowing this to work better, faster, so sleeker and faster?
So the evolution of this really, you know, we started the business to, you know, on a mission to help seniors that, you know, as a preventative tool for seniors so they don't fall. Because once they fall, 70% pass away in 6 months. And most reactive technologies don't solve that problem. And that's how we started. And we innovated along the way, creating antenna technology that allows us to transmit Bluetooth through metal and at distance. And coincidentally, I was introduced in the product development cycle to a jewelry designer from New York City. It was actually at CES last year. She was the co-founder, COO of Hippolyta, and her entire team was from Alexis Patar. And we started thinking, saying, you know, we can make really, really interesting, real jewelry where the sensors and electronics disappear. And the goal there is make it so beautiful that people would wear it even if it had no electronics inside. And we've actually had people buy it saying, I don't care if it works or not. I want the jewelry. Bingo. That's what we want. We want to make it so good that people will wear it, buy it, use it, and now they get the data because they're using it all the time. You know, with the high abandonment rate of technology, you need to make it sticky.
So tell us, okay, but link those two things together. The process that you were going through from a design perspective and how that led to the antenna technology. Because you were telling me earlier, this was something I wasn't really aware of, that the designers wanted to do one thing and the technology was holding it back, and so you guys were able to move that forward.
As a bunch of real hardcore nerds, I call it my nerd frat house down in San Antonio. And we sat around the table and we had all the designers flying from New York. It was like, you know, the devil wears Prada visits the nerds. And we sat around the table and they wanted to make a really small, sleek bracelet. And there was a problem, you need a battery, right? You need a battery to charge this thing. And they wanted to make it, you know, completely out of metal. And as they pushed on us, we innovated to make very interesting developments on the antenna technology that allows us to make the first fully integrated piece. So it was actually the designers that pushed on the engineers to then innovate, which is kind of cool.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
You know, I think a beautiful example of hybrid vigor or even team of rivals, you know, where the priorities are different. I can't speak to this world. Jerry's brilliant at the engineering. But, you know, in my world, in public health, preventive medicine, where there are big challenges, helping people eat well, be active, kind of overcome the obstacles to healthy living, most of our great innovations have come from the hybrid vigor, multidisciplinary teams. People who have a hard time seeing eye to eye. Yeah, I think this is most important. I think that's most important. And that fusion that you referred to, I really think that's where the cutting edge of innovation resides.
So just jumping off of this for a second, given your perspective, what's the coolest thing you guys have seen here at the show?
I'm biased. But
Okay.
Well, you're biased, and I am sequestered. I think the coolest thing I've seen is the inside of my hotel room, where I spent the day writing columns, answering emails, and then basically got here. So I'm not in a good position to comment, so you're going to have to take this one.
you know,
Maybe something new from WiseWear. How's that?
Well, you know, we did launch we launched a men's line, the Titan collection, where we're using the same kind of technology, making the sensors and electronics invisible, and we incorporated it into a men's belt. And really slick, and actually the accuracy is much improved by going to the core. And the anatomical location of that improves the accuracy of those sensor devices and actually the data, which is a big sticking point now, because a lot of groups are putting optical sensors into wrist-worn devices to measure heart rate. And as a biomedical, I'm an optical engineer, and that's what my PhD's in. And there's a thing called Beer's Law. And it's really difficult unless you really clamp those optical sensors on the wrist to get accurate heart rate detection. So we get this question a lot, like, oh, well, heart rate detection, that's good to go, and step counts are accurate. And it's like, the sensors aren't that good yet. I mean, we think they are, but they're evolving, and we still need to optimize and improve sensor development before the data in. You know, if the sensors are bad, you have garbage in and garbage out. Regardless of how good your algorithms are and artificial intelligence, it's still going to be bad. So there's a lot of work left, and we're just at the beginning of kind of an inflection point, I think, in wearables.
I guess I can offer one comment from fighting my way over here from my hotel room through the throng. I mean, this conference is a three-ring circus, right? But that tells us something really important. So Jerry was telling me, you know, everybody in the audience knows that there are something like 200,000 people descend on Vegas for CES. So arguably the world's biggest conference. It's like a migration, practically. So, you know, from the perspective of someone who advocates lifestyle as medicine, let's eat well, be active, sleep enough, not stress out, avoid tobacco, love somebody, you know, the formula is not all that complicated, and you might say, you know, do we really need all this tech to make it happen? But the answer is yes. Because if you can't beat them, join them, for one thing. We are a world awash in tech. Look at the interest it attracts. So then the issue becomes, how can we leverage that fascination? And we're turning ourselves into cyborg. The interface is so intimate. How do we make sure that does all the good it can do? And so, you know, the coolest thing here is simply seeing the massive population that's mobilized to see what's new in tech, and the opportunity that provides in the hands of brilliant engineers to say, we're going to harness that power.
And that's that's an interesting item, is with so much technology, we're kind of getting addicted to it. And
Good point.
I was with our chief marketing officer in New York, and we were flying out of town, having breakfast, and Jordan was sitting across from me, and he had an iPad, and I had an iPad in front of me to order our food at breakfast.
Right.
I couldn't see him, right?
Yep.
Ordered the food, swiped my card, they shuttled the food out, we didn't talk, and we left.
You don't have to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
I was like,
Food
it's
just
getting,
appears.
there's
so
a balance there.
There is a
Yes.
balance, yeah. No, actually, there have been studies. I don't know if this audience wants to hear this. It's a bit off topic, but there actually have been studies in epidemiology, my world, documenting a decline in the ambient level of empathy. You know, essentially our ability to feel and understand one another's emotions, especially in young people, because they are so sequestered by technology, and there's always something between them and another person. So we clearly, there is this enormous power. This relationship isn't going away. It can be leveraged to do a lot of good. But yeah, even at CES, maybe you can say that there are some things in life that don't require tech.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Well,
a
very
hug.
quickly, I was actually going to say, we don't have a lot of time. I want to ask one question of you, David, on that front. Do you think there's any risk of breakdown of relationship with my doctor or healthcare provider because of the fact that now it's so directly information-based?
Right. So great question. No, not if it's done right, because again, our encounters are very episodic anyway, and a continuous flow of information in both directions is what we've always wanted and never been able to achieve. In the old days, doctors used to make rounds and go house to house. Those days are gone. These days, we have these episodic visits with people who really would benefit from information from the healthcare system daily and from whom we need details that we can't get. So done right, no, it's only an enhancement.
Okay, that's great. And just switching gears quickly, because I think one of the amazing things from my perspective about this device that is not something I had heard of before is the emergency, its emergency capacity. So when you're in a situation of distress, and particularly focused perhaps on women and or children, because we talked about that later, can you tell us what this device can do if I am feeling like I'm not in a great situation?
Yeah, so my beautiful wife, I think, is out there in the crowd somewhere. But we have 3 little children, 6, 3, and 1. And she's with them often, going to the grocery store. Her smartphone's in her purse, underneath piles of diapers. And if she's traveling by herself with the kids, she wouldn't have time to get to her smartphone. So this is designed in such a way that if something, God forbid, happened and she was approached, she just taps the bracelet 3 times. It issues a distress message to her loved ones, in this case, me. And then I know her exact GPS location. I can, provide help, or at least send people to get help on the way.
I think that, as someone who, I think a lot of people would appreciate knowing that that's something that you have, that sort of help could be a tap away. And you talked a little bit about the idea that there may also be a service behind that if you were in a really dire situation, that you actually could have it connected to.
Yeah, we're setting up some partnerships with some private security companies global in ways to provide basically on-command help and deliver that on essentially like ADT personal care.
Well,
We shoehorned these answers in with, you're looking at the monitor.
I've been
we
so
have an abundance
schooled.
of seconds to
I've been
spare.
so schooled. In our final seconds, does anyone have anything that they feel we need to know that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, again, I think this wave, this change in society has happened. CES is testimony to that. But we can't assume that more technology is always a good thing. It really, it is innovation in engineering, invention that really is responsive to necessity. This is. And I particularly love the fact that aesthetics were taken into account, things that people really want to wear anyway, because, it's not a solution if people don't make routine use of it. If it's something they want with them all the time, then all of this power is accessible to us. So, the emergency response, the proactive cautions, the reactive responses to medical situations, the flow of information, all embedded. So I'm very grateful for this kind of advance.
Me too.
Okay,
You have one thing.
Yeah, one thing. So we've gotten a lot of heat. Where's the screen, right? Most electronics have a screen. And the reality is, our mantra is lose the screen, not the moment. We want people to be in the moment. And with a screen here, a screen in my pocket, a screen here, a screen there, you're not in the moment.
What were you saying?
Yeah. And we truly, we made that an effort to lose the screen, not the moment. And that's a thread that goes through all of our smart apparel and smart wearables.
Excellent. Well, thank you, David, and thank you, Jerry,
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.